Hello, 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 and happy Wednesday. For those of you who may not know me, I'm Lacey Hodges, and today I wanted to do a live stream of the Day 14 Karen Read trial. This is a quick summary of one of my favorite YouTube commentators, Emily D. Baker. I'm sure you've heard of her. I watch her live trial gavel to gavel whenever she has them streaming, and then she does a channel called Quick Bits where she summarizes the day. She does it like perfect. So rather than me going through and botching it up, I figured why wouldn't I just share the best part of YouTube right here with you and allow my reaction as we go along, because this isn't the only trial that I have watched with her that I was like, what? But this one I think is the most confusing in terms of like Emily said it multiple times. Like the prosecution just has to put on a timeline so it keeps everyone, or for myself, and the opinion across the internet is the confusion of when and what happened. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start her Day 14 Quick Bits, and I will give you my thoughts, or better yet, my questions as she goes through it. Feel free to use the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe while you're on here. And don't forget to go check out Emily's Quick Fit channel as well as her full long form commentary on all things pop culture and legal commentary. So let's go ahead and get started.
Striking her boyfriend, Boston police officer John O'Keefe, with her car after a night of drinking and leaving him in the snow to die. The defense is saying, as they said in their opening statement, that Karen Read was framed and this is all a cover-up. Well, the morning of Day 14 of the Commonwealth versus Karen Read was busy in court because we got to the cross-examination of Matt McCabe, which, after Matt said, I didn't see anyone practice fighting at the bar, they were grab-assing, got into his text messages. It seems that they are maybe from Jen McCabe's phone extraction. That has not been proven in evidence yet, but from looking at them, that's what it seems like. But as we got to the text messages, there is clearly a group chat where Matt McCabe is saying that he was driving by 34 Fairview and troopers were there digging something up. He later said it was snow and that he was going to try to get a picture of that, but that wasn't really the point of those text messages. It was the fact that he was texting Brian Albert, Brian Albert's wife, Nicole, his wife, and himself to tell Chris Albert that the guy never came inside, and that Brian Albert responded to that text exactly.
Okay, so what this is actually kind of what she's summarizing here, and that's why watching the trial gavel is actually super helpful. But what she's summarizing here is essentially the group text that they have sounds like they're trying to get their story together. And it could be out of context. It could be that they meant it a different way, or it could be meant exactly the way that it's coming off. But the prosecution didn't help clear that up, nor did they help keep the thought of it looking like they're trying to get their story straight. They didn't really try to keep it looking any better. So when the defense got it on the cross, they essentially ate them alive with it, because it sounds bad. First off, it's so disrespectful for them to speak of not only the victim that was dead on the lawn, but the victim is a Boston police officer. So to just be like, that guy is disrespectful. That guy has a name. That guy had a name before he was a victim, and he definitely deserves to have a name now that, like, since he has unfortunately become the victim. And so to distance themselves and act like they didn't even know who he was, when they're police officers and they're all connected that way. And if you're unaware of like the connection of how what they all have together in this small town and how they all kind of intertwine, and how Karen Reed ended up on trial, or assume that how she ended up on trial for something that she may or may not have done, go back into my channel. I have all of Emily's quick fit summaries, as well as you can go to her channel and see the actual 8-hour days of trial coverage. But what she's covering here is that the text messages that they took from the phones, the ones they were able to give, because some of the people had actually got rid of their phones, and some traded them in, and some eventually deleted them. They were just screenshots or whatever, which doesn't help the whole like, that's kind of odd. But in this group chat, they're speaking, one person, Matt McCabe, which is a witness that is on the day 14 summary, is like referencing John O'Keefe as, which is the victim, as that guy. And then one of the other members of the Albert family that's in this group chat is like, when he's like, well, I've never seen that guy go in the house. Then another person in the chat's like, exactly. So that's where it sounds like they're trying to get their stories together.
And that those texts happened on February 1st, 2022. January 29th is when John O'Keefe, referred to by Matt McCabe as the guy, was found at 34 Fairview. And somehow from February 1st, they said that Chris Albert was supposed to say that to Channel 4 News, that the guy never came inside the house. Unbelievable text messages that the prosecution never brought up. They knew that that was coming in cross-examination. Everyone has these texts. And they never gave this witness an opportunity to explain that before the defense brought it in, which allowed what I think was a
Okay, so we're actually on like day 19 or day 20. I'm not exactly sure. Today's it's June 5th. So I'm recording this on June 5th, trying to get caught up to current trial time. I really should have utilized my time last week whenever court was out of session. A little better, but summer started, and anyway, things are crazy. If you have kids or don't have kids, whatever. So this was day 14, and I actually forgot. So I'm glad I'm able to rewatch it the summer with you guys and be able to give my input here. On the last time I had stopped on to kind of give you a little bit of back history here, I had said that the prosecution had brought it up, but due to Emily's coverage, I have been corrected. Thank goodness, that it actually, that's a horrible way to cross her face.
very,
Okay, I was not doing her justice there. So the prosecution never brought the text messages up. And what Emily says each day of the trial, it seems like it's a repeat thing that she keeps saying, because it's like a reoccurring theme, is that the prosecution knows what the defense is going to bring up. So in this instance, the prosecution had to know that these text messages were going to be put up. And since this is the prosecution's witness, they could have introduced the text messages, allowed the witness to give their explanation or to clear up any misunderstanding on the context of those, if there was any, or however, because with it being a prosecution witness, they're able to walk them through that and, kind of put them out in front of it. What they didn't do was that. So they go through the testimony, asked all the what, if any, who, if any, questions that they've been asking, or one. This one prosecutor that's been doing all the questioning, but that he's been asking, but he never once brought up or mentioned these text messages. And so when the witness got put up into cross-examination, the defense put them up. So now it looks like the prosecution was trying to hide it. So what will need to happen is when the prosecution does a redirect, which is to the legal, I guess, reference to it would be rehabilitate the witness, but in simple terms, essentially clean up the mess and allow it to be the last thing that the jury hears is the cleanup of anything that had happened or any clarification that's needed or anything like that from the cross-examination. Now, again, this was like almost 2 weeks ago whenever the day 14 trial day happened. So I can't remember exactly how prosecution did on the redirect. Well, I don't think it was absolutely amazing because that's one thing you haven't heard about prosecution is that they've done an amazing job. They leave a lot of questions. So we're going to keep watching, and that way either redirect will happen at the end of day 14 or the beginning of day 15. So how about that?
Impactful moment for the defense. I'm interested in your thoughts about the impact of that moment. Does it change the way you see this case? Or are you still at, I've got a ton of questions, but I don't know how you overcome these witnesses saying this as it comes to where, if anywhere, Karen Read is in all of this? Because we went from Karen Read was screaming over the phone to Jen McCabe. Jen McCabe was fairly calm during all of this, unless you ask Brian Albert and his wife, and then they say she wasn't, to the back and forth that morning. But the group texts afterwards, the missing cell phones afterwards, I don't know how the prosecution is going to overcome that doubt, even if the jury doesn't believe that something was done by any of these parties. How do you believe at this point something was done by Karen Read? The state has not put anything into evidence yet that shows how they believe Karen Read hit John O'Keefe with his car. And it is the last day of week 3. At the end of day 14 of the Commonwealth versus Karen Read, I am exhausted. Chat is exhausted. It seems that the lawyers and the judge are also exhausted.
Okay, so now she's into the afternoon part of it, and she's going to summarize that for us. But before we get into that, I just wanted to quickly just kind of put out there that at this point, Karen Read could be guilty, but because of the lack of evidence or even a timeline or even, I don't know that they've put a witness up that has actually put Karen Read anywhere other than at the bar with the group and with John O'Keefe. There's not enough consistent testimony at this point to prove that her car was actually in front of the house. Now, we know that Karen Read has said that she pulled up in front of the house and that John O'Keefe got out of the vehicle. But if you go based on what the prosecution has presented, they don't even have enough witnesses consistently providing that information. So the only thing that everyone can agree on at this point is that they were all at the Waterfall, which is a bar there in Canton, and they all left. And with the intent to head over to Brian Albert Sr.'s home, which is where the victim ended up on the front lawn. So if the trial were to end on day 14, we would all be left with a whole bunch of questions, and everybody would just go home, and this would have to be they'd have to refile the case. Because, I have so many questions. Like, in the next couple of summary streams as we are catching up to real time, because today will be a full day of trial. One of the questions I have is, how did they not see the shoe on the lawn, but then all of a sudden it was collected? So hopefully that'll be cleared up on day, I think we're on day 19 or day 20 today. So anyway, but that's kind of where we're going to pick up this recap is now we're in the afternoon part of the trial, and where Emily left off was everyone is exhausted. The internet's exhausted, the court's exhausted, everybody's exhausted, and here's why.
Today was a long day. It just felt long. It was actually long. The day ended with the end of the direct examination of Jen McCabe. There were times that her direct examination felt like a cross examination, and it was very clipped short answers. Yes, no, this, that. There were times that they were very fast narratives of what was happening. The testimony at times I found hard to follow, and the testimony is coming.
So, the end of day 14, I'm guessing that the prosecution did not do a great job on the redirect, as it has not made the summary here with Emily. So, I'm guessing it wasn't very impactful to even make the quick fix summary here with her. Then the witness's wife, Jen McCabe. So the first witness of day 14 started on cross-examination, which would have been Matt McCabe. His wife then, in the afternoon session, Jen McCabe went onto the witness stand. Now, this is where the testimony gets really, really interesting, or the trial gets really interesting, because Jen McCabe just comes in hot. I mean, she was defensive with the prosecution, who is on her side. She's defensive with the defense, which is not on her side. She's defensive. I mean, she just came in angry. So we'll see how this continues to go. But it's going to give you an update that we're not on the prosecution witness, Jen McCabe, and this is direct examination.
Right on the heels of her husband's text messages saying the guy was never in the house. So the Commonwealth putting Matt McCabe up before Jen McCabe leads into her testimony with her husband's testimony and everybody going, I mean, okay, so he woke up, he heard Karen Read screaming over the phone. Karen Read came over to the house. His wife left to go find John. And then you get to cross-examination and went, what? You're texting in a group chat. What now? And that leads into Jen McCabe's testimony. And I can't imagine it's out of the jurors' minds, because it for sure wasn't out of mine. And I tried very hard to listen to Jen McCabe's testimony, because there were things in it that are consistent with other testimonies. There are things in it we had not heard before. We got some timing of when Jen finally disclosed to somebody that she heard Karen Read definitively say, she says, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him 3 times. Her testimony was, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him. She said it 3 times to an EMT. That is what Jen McCabe said. But then she said that she didn't relay that to law enforcement, and she called Lank on his cell phone to come back so she could tell Lank about all the things she heard Karen Read say. Though woven throughout her testimony, she says Karen Read is screaming. She's hysterical. Carrie Roberts is telling her to shut the fuck up. I think I'm embellishing that. I think it was just to shut up. The vibe was it was a shut the fuck up, but it was telling her to shut up, telling her to stop screaming, telling her that she was batshit crazy. That came out on the stand. That Karen Read was hysterical, was yelling at all of them, was saying, could I have hit him? Could I have hit him? Did I hit him? Is he dead? And screaming their names, both of their names. There was also testimony that when Karen saw John, when they were pulling up, that Jen McCabe didn't see anything. And Karen was like banging to get out of the car, the back seat of the car, and ran to where John was and lifted up her shirt and lifted up his shirt and was like laying on top of him, which rang very true to me, that that's what Karen.
So the fact that Jen McCabe throws in there that the other girl that showed up to the house the next morning where the victim was eventually, unfortunately found on the lawn. When she's like, Karen was screaming, and Carrie had to tell her, shut up or shut the fuck up. She was just so hysterical. Personally, if I had just found my husband in the cold, laying on someone's lawn, like in a blizzard, I would have probably been panicking. I'm sure I would have been like in a hysterical state. And I don't know how I would react to that. Someone told me to shut the fuck up. But no, mind you, Karen Reed is so hysterical that someone told her to shut the fuck up because it's like 6 in the morning, and I'm sure they can't think, and they're in shock and they don't know what the hell's going on, and they can't understand anything she's doing. But yet, the first responders that lived inside the home never once heard anything. Just gonna put that one out there again.
And Reed did when she got out of the car is ran to John and started laying on top of him. There are parts of her testimony that are consistent with what we're seeing from the dash cam videos and from other testimony. And there are parts that were hard to follow. She testified that Karen Reed was pointing out to them at the back of the car when they got back to John O'Keefe's home to look for him, that she was pointing out to them about her taillight, but the Ring doorbell shows none of it. Jen McCabe said that Karen Reed was screaming hysterically the entire time, but the Ring doorbell didn't say that. But we saw some of that in the police footage. It is going to be interesting to see what comes up on cross. I was surprised the prosecution didn't bring in more of the phone records that start pinning the times down. They did bring in the phone records showing Jen McCabe texting John O'Keefe and John O'Keefe not answering. But it raises the question, when they're texting and texting and texting, why didn't anyone go out of the house and knock on the door if they saw the SUV out there? And then Jen McCabe said, it wasn't until my husband said the next morning, but we saw them at Fairview, that she even realized that that was Karen Reed's SUV outside of Fairview. She said Karen Reed told her she left John at the waterfall and that everybody was completely confused that morning. It will be interesting to parse through the rest of this testimony on cross-examination, but it was a lot. It had very interesting starts and stops. There was a lot of leading going on with the prosecution, very little objecting, because I'm sure the defense is just like, say whatever you're going to say, because just say whatever you're going to say is cross-examination will be when court resumes on Tuesday. But she also said Karen was imploring her to search hypothermia and how long it takes to die in the snow.
Okay, so this is where the whole thing goes kind of sideways for this witness. Now, on the upside, the prosecution does bring this up before cross-examination, so at least they didn't leave her out to dry like they did her husband. But I'm not sure, unless she didn't know how to spell hypothermia. But again, with autocorrect and Google pretty much knows what you're trying to say. I don't know how Karen Reed asking her about hypothermia resulted in her texting house, which should have been how, but it was a typo of HOS, house, long, to die in the cold. The other thing I don't understand is, which I don't think anyone does, but is how that search about how long it takes to die in the cold, or however it was in real, make sure to let us know, but how that search was made at 2:30 in the morning when they didn't even find the victim, John O'Keefe, until 6 a.m., between 5:45 or so to 6 a.m. on the lawn. So that's where the whole something shady's going on here. So let's see.
Where there are paramedics, it seems, and police officers everywhere. She said that Karen is screaming, "I hit him," and is he dead? And that's consistent.
So the impression that I'm getting is that the entire case hinged from indictment, grand jury, case filing, all the way to day 14 that we are covering right this second, based on simply one witness and then turned into multiple witnesses stating they heard Karen Reed say, I hit him, meaning she hit him with the car. But once, like each day that goes on, and this was covered more in the earlier days of the trial, but that is not, there's not really any concrete proof to that. There's a lot of like, well, I heard this, well, I heard that, well, so and so told me this. And so it's kind of like it kind of like took on a life of its own. Yet there's a timeline, there's records from a cell phone, there's a Google search, there's going to be cell records that come in that tell exactly what time this Google search of how long it takes to die in the cold or whatever happened by Jim McCabe and all these things, how that didn't spark an interest to the Commonwealth, which is the prosecution, the state of Massachusetts, or Canton. Anyway, either way, how the Commonwealth didn't think that that was just as important as the I hit him. If you can get an indictment and get all the way to where we're at now with this trial based on I hit him, so I'm saying, then there should be the same, if not more, ability and grounds to get there with Jim McCabe. So she should be put on trial next based on simply a Google search. But so the whole thing's just wild to me.
With what law enforcement said, is he dead? But I am left with the one question. If Karen Reed is wailing, I hit him, why does no one treat it like a crime scene? Again, the actions for me are what I'm looking at in this case, because I want to see.
And again, the investigation itself and the way that it was done, the way that, like, they never had a crime scene before, it's a small town, the way that it was handled further and further on as it just continued going. I mean, it never got any better. It's let's say that Commonwealth is correct about Karen Reed and that she did do this. They're letting a murderer go free based on the investigation alone. The investigation wasn't done correctly, and then all the extra side drama in there based on, the main investigator is like, a second family to the people that lived in the house where the victim was found on the lawn, and, so forth, so on. Everything that this whole trial is wrapped up in. But it does come down to the Commonwealth should be upset that the investigation is what would let a murderer go free. If Karen Reed is actually guilty, so far the investigation has been so botched that it's hard to, beyond a reasonable doubt, see that.
The video evidence, the cell phone evidence, the text message evidence, I am going to be looking at all of that information, because it wasn't till Officer Blank came back that it seems Jen McCabe ever said she heard Karen Reed saying over and over and over, I hit him. And no one seemed to treat it at the time as if Karen Reed said that in any meaningful way. One paramedic said she heard Karen Reed saying that to another woman at the scene. But we also heard testimony she was saying, could I have hit him? Could I have hit him? I don't know if this testimony clears anything up for anyone, because this case has gotten so convoluted at this point. It's very hard to parse. but it seems clear to me that the prosecution might be hanging quite a lot of their case on the testimony of Jen McCabe. The defense has said that the how long to die in the snow search occurred sometime after.
And that is the concerning part, is that, like I mentioned just a few moments ago, that if the entire case is hinged upon Jen McCabe remembering Karen Reed saying, I hit him, yeah, that's, but not on how long does it take to die in the snow or whatever that Google search was at 2:30 hours prior to him being found in the lawn by Karen Reed and the other two girls that were with her.
2:26, 2:27 in the morning. And she's saying that happened the next morning when she got to Fairview. At this point, I just want to see the digital evidence. I need the records from the phone company before I even know what to think with anything. Because law enforcement at the scene did not treat this like a homicide case. So I need to see a lot more information at this point. One thing is clear: at the end of 3 weeks of testimony, we still don't know how the prosecution believes that Karen Reed hit John O'Keefe with her car. I imagine next week we'll start to get into the science.
And yet we are still wondering that. But as of day 14, Emily is exactly right. So we still don't know how. We do know what she said. We do know what she did up till leaving the bar, but we don't know anything else. And Emily does her trial or her after the hour coverage on live trials, and encourages how she goes into it, which is as a juror. So like in this case, she didn't know a whole bunch about it, and she literally went into it like if she were to be picked up for jury. And I knew nothing about it until she mentioned it, and at first I was kind of like, But then the more and more it went on, just based on each trial day, I'm like, I've got some questions. Now, I will say that the Commonwealth, the prosecution, their direct is so slow and boring that I usually skip straight to the cross-examination part, and then a lot of quick bits to fill me in on the Commonwealth part of it. But it's all practically the same. His questioning doesn't go off too far. All the how are they going to explain this and that usually comes in on the defense because the prosecution does not do that for some odd reason. So, but as she's wrapping up her day 14 summary, I will say that yes, I am right there with her. I still have no questions.
Scientific data at some point. We know that everybody was at the waterfall. The testimony with regard to the waterfall is fairly consistent. Everything from people going to basketball games and people going out to eat, everything up until 12:15, 12:20 is consistent. After 12:20, everything goes off the fucking rails. I don't know if I've ever seen a case that is so convoluted and confusing 3 weeks in. For deep dive.
Okay, so that's going to wrap up the day 14 summary. And essentially, day 14, as you can see, started with the cross-examination of Matt McCabe. The afternoon started with the direct examination of Jen McCabe, which means that day 15 will start with the cross-examination of Jen McCabe, which gets really, really dramatic. Like I said, she came in hot with the prosecution, and she comes in hot with the defense, for sure. If I'm not mistaken, I believe that cross-examination took like a day and a half, maybe 2 days. And so you definitely want to make sure to stick around or click on to the next day 15 summary, like the next day video. I will do the most quick bits, and then if you want to see the before and after of the parts that she summarizes, you'll want to head over to her channel and check out each day's coverage in long form. But so the Commonwealth still has Jim McCabe on the stand. They're still doing the direct examination, and as we heard in the quick bits here, nothing has been any more clear now, other than the same things that have been stated by each witness up to this point. And that is up until everybody leaves the bar, everyone has the same story, a little bit here and there, depending on their day of what they did. But overall, everybody's story is consistent after that, likely. And that leaves us at day 14 with my final thought of I still have questions. So hopefully day 15 will clear some of those up. But if you still have questions, put them in the comments and let me know. What are your questions? What are you thinking up to this point? And can you clear up any of this? Like, did I miss something? Did I miss something in the quick bits? What part of this trial have you seen that maybe I need to go back and rewatch? Let me know in the comments below. Simply say hi if you are just as confused and can't add anything to it, but you're on the edge of your seat wanting to see if something gets cleared up tomorrow in the next video. But you can always hit the like button, subscribe, and help me to grow my channel. Don't forget to check out Emily's gavel to gavel coverage. I don't know if this trial will end before summer is over, since the prosecution still has a lot of witnesses, a lot of important witnesses have not come in yet. And then I believe the defense has like 50 or 60 of their own, and then there will be a rebuttal case and then closing arguments. So I seriously am thinking that we're going to be at the end of summer. The court schedule, they have 2 half days. Sometimes they have court on Friday, sometimes they don't. This week they will do like there was no court for Tuesday, but yeah, Wednesday's a full day, Thursday's a half day, and no court on Friday. So they're like, I didn't know until recently that the O.J. Simpson trial was 8 months long. And now I have a feeling that this one is not going to be far behind if they don't start picking up some speed. And the judge's patience, it seems, non-existent. It's summer. People want to get out. And yeah, they're stuck in this trial over summer. So I'm going to wrap up this part of the stream again. Don't forget to say hi. Don't forget to do all the things like, subscribe, comment, share. And since the channel is still growing, there is no way to do monetizing subscriptions, super chats, things like that. So make sure to put your comments in so I can share them on screen, and check the descriptions for the StreamYard I use and different software I use for my video editing, how to find Emily's channel, as well as other links that you can follow me on social media. So until tomorrow, I still got questions, and I will see you then. Bye.